Browns and the rest of the NFL are idle until Monday on Labor Day, mandated by the league, getting these players, some rest before the rigors of the 2025 full NFL regular season and possible playoffs kick off. For all of us, a last little taste of summer before the NFL consumes us until February 8th. Browns' 53-man roster is set for the time being. Practice squad, same thing applies. So we're going to give some thoughts here on what might be some optimism and some concern to look out for in the coming weeks for the Cleveland Browns positional groups. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network begins now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate all of you coming out to the OBR.com each and every day for your favorite Cleveland Browns coverage. Hope you guys took advantage yesterday. Barry McBride wide open the VIP doors for everybody to get a glimpse of all the good stuff here behind the scenes for a small fee that you can get at the OBR.com. Hope you window shopped. Hope you saw what you liked. And it convinces you enough, especially with maybe some discounts between now and Monday, that the OBR.com VIP package is the way you need to go. Insider forums, ask the insiders. And of course, it's bundled with a subscription to Paramount Plus. You like UFC, you like watching people get choked out and beat up. Browns football, UFC, for a small fee. We appreciate all the support for the OBR streaming network, beginning nightly with Browns 3D. Numerous shows, of course, throughout the week. We've been debuting some new things, of course. Fred Greetham, Mike Keefe, doing a weekly show with some of the Cleveland Browns beat. You guys seem to be receiving that really well. Pete and Joe on Tuesday evenings, which has really, been some good stuff to this point. Maybe we'll get a name for that show one of these days. Who knows? So make sure you're subscribed, of course, to the OBR on YouTube, and make sure, of course, that you are subscribed to the OBR over on Twitch. Where it all begins, where it all starts, and sadly, sometimes where it all ends, right? The quarterback position. Um, Joe Flacco, of course, came in really late in the free agent process as the Browns had already had Kenny Pickett in and on the roster. Joe wasn't much of a contest whatsoever. Some of it certainly by injury. Kenny Pickett never really getting a chance to compete. And the rookies basically were just competing against themselves. Joe Flacco basically walked in the door, was going to be the number one quarterback. Nobody even gave the Cleveland Browns a second thought as to why it would be anybody else other than Joe. Joe, of course, now at 40 years old, and we all kind of go back to, 2023 and, Joe coming in late in the season. The Browns were behind the eight ball at the quarterback position. It was the only thing that were holding them back. And Joe went on to a really nice run. We all know the rest. Browns ended up in the playoffs, of course, just to have a doomsday of a day in Houston, Texas. Now, the confidence level in Joe is certainly high as far as running this team, running this offense, being the leader. I mean, you see the glimpses. Guys adore him. Even David Njoku is probably a 10-year age difference. You think David Njoku's like his little brother. I mean, these guys hang on every word that Joe says. Now, Joe still got all the arm talent in the world, still got the zip on the fastball, can put balls in places that nobody else can. Now, the question, as far as maybe the concern, and this one isn't a major concern. Look, there's a lot of new pieces here. Joe, excelled, of course, during that run in 2023 with Amari Cooper. That role, of course, is being handled by Jerry Jeudy. Joe and Cedric Tillman didn't really have much of a decent working relationship in 2023. Tillman has grown his game since that time. Probably going to be counted on pretty heavily here this year. Does a Jamari Thrash take the step that I think we're all anticipating that he makes? But Joe's had one flaw pretty much that's, when he's gone wrong in his career, Joe Flacco, you can always kind of pinpoint it back to the one thing. And, Joe unfortunately has an ability where, he can throw interceptions and at times throw them in bunches. And it's certainly, been things that have, derailed any success at times in the Ravens. Of course, we are talking about a guy who won a Super Bowl. And, we saw glimpses of that certainly in the playoff loss 2 years ago in Houston and threw a high number of interceptions for the amount played considering in 2023. You definitely get that, up and down roller coaster type of play. Maybe not as much as Jameis Winston, but you certainly kind of get it with Joe where, there can be a quarter and a half where Joe Flacco is just outstanding. And then all of a sudden there's 2 drives where maybe you get 2 critical mistakes in back-to-back drives. Joe's level of consistency is going to be paramount to what this offense can do. Keep the completion percentage high, keep the touchdown to interception rate certainly higher to the touchdown rate. You got to keep that interception rate, that interception number low. If, Joe continues to, throw interceptions at an exorbitant amount, it's, something that could really derail and impact any positivity and any, potential of the Browns offense, being better than average this year. The running back position and the fact that we're here Friday before Labor Day weekend, and, we've had the news of Quinshon Judkins and, no charges being filed probably, I guess, over 2 weeks now, it feels like. And we're still in this holding pattern where there doesn't seem to be any progression towards a contract. And the thing is we're not really being given, any signs as to what might be slowing it down. Is it, the Browns trying to get a deal that works better in their favor? I hope Judkins and his camp at this point are still not trying to look for a guaranteed contract. It would seem foolish from their standpoint. Is the league kind of encouraging this deal maybe not get done yet? And again, I continue to tell you people, even if there is a suspension coming for Quinshon Judkins, I don't think it's going to be very lengthy at all. There's going to be 0 charges. There's nothing at the end of the day that Quinshon Judkins is going to go in front of a judge for. So if the NFL kind of wants to give him a conduct not becoming suspension, we're talking 1 game, 2 games max. So I don't understand where the hurdle is. What's holding this up as far as the Browns and Judkins getting pen to paper and getting him in here? At this point, here we are Friday, you know, 9 days away from the opener. Even if Judkins puts pen to paper here today on Friday, practice isn't again till Monday. It's hard to believe that Quinshon Judkins, even if he were signed today, would be a factor for the Cleveland Browns in their week 1 matchup against Cincinnati Bengals. So certainly that is a huge cause of concern, and it's something that just hasn't changed now for gotta be 5, 6 weeks at this point. Jerome Ford appears to be your lead back, and I think some of that has to do with the fact that I don't think they envision Dylan Sampson being a heavy workloaded guy. And I probably should preface that by saying I don't think they see Dylan Sampson as being a high carry guy. I think they definitely want to incorporate Dylan Sampson within the passing game. We've seen the way they've used him, whether it was, jet motions, jet sweeps, lining him up, at slot, lining him up out wide. They really have a lot of things they want to do with Dylan Sampson and kind of use him overall as an offensive weapon, which probably certainly, limits the amount of carries he's going to get. I'm not saying that some weeks are going to be different than others, but, Ford, who can play the complete position, can and has shown the ability to be the receiving back that Kevin Stefanski really wants within this offense. I mean, you can say what you want. As much as everybody loved Nick Chubb, and that is all understood, he was a great player for this franchise. He was never the receiving option for this team that we've gotten to see Jerome Ford be at times for this team. Raheem Rocket Sanders, and I think he kind of caught everybody, and kind of pleased everybody with his comment that it might be Labor Day weekend and everybody gets a 72-hour pass. But, Sanders has 0 issue of leaving Cleveland. All his intentions are to getting himself as well versed as possible, within the Browns playbook and, being ready to be needed if called upon for the week 1 matchup with the Bengals. You have, of course, Travion Williams on the practice squad. You have Amani Marshall on the practice squad. If somebody were to come up for any reason whatsoever, my belief, it would be Travion Williams, just because he can do a little bit of everything, including special teams. Marshall, I think at this point is still a developmental guy that they like. And I kind of agree. I think his patience and what we saw from him over the summer probably translates well to the running back position within the Cleveland Browns and Kevin Stefanski's system, but probably a little more time to marinate on the practice squad. And, so it's kind of where we're at. It's, I think the optimism is certain for Dylan Sanders. If you want me to have a greater amount of optimism for this running back room, it would be knowing that, Quinshon Judkins will soon be a part of said room. Wide receiver, and, I think Jerry Jeudy is certainly going to benefit from what looks like for at least maybe the first 5, 6 weeks. It'll be an extended playing time with one quarterback and one quarterback only. There certainly was not enough mentioned and praise given to Jerry Jeudy for his performance last year when basically it was a revolving door at the quarterback position, getting to just hopefully work with Joe week in, week out. And, that'll go as long as the Browns are successful, is my guess. Should just only enhance Jerry Jeudy and probably be able to keep him, within the realm of the statistical output we saw from Jeudy in 2024, if not better. Cedric Tillman, and this is where it's different now for Tillman is because, we've gotten to see, a solid professional stretch from Cedric Tillman in 2024. There was a 3-game stretch where it was 7 for 95, 1 touchdown. Those were his averages over a 3-game stretch last season. So Tillman, if he's going to be out there, he's got to produce. It's not a, hey, can it be a feel good story? Hey, can he possibly break out? It's none of that. Cedric Tillman has shown he can play this position. So if he's not going to be able to go out and perform with some consistency for this team, it's going to be labeled as a disappointment, and rightfully so. Jamari Thrash, was a big talk of the spring, certainly was a talk of the training camp, and really kind of proved himself throughout the preseason games. So much so that the Browns had veteran Deontay Johnson in here, and Thrash just simply outplayed him. There's just no other words to put towards it. And, I think the expectation is real for Jamari Thrash. And, believing that he could be a guy that could contribute maybe north of 40 receptions this year is, not, not going, with a wishful thinking. Again, probably more of what could be, certainly should be expected. Isaiah Bond, obviously, we don't have much to go off of, and certainly too early to tell. Has not been into this offense very long. Certainly a lot of potential there. Bond needs refinement, and it's not so much coaching things because, I talk about him leaving his feet a lot, which always distracts your eyes on the catch point. And, people bringing up, oh, well, the coaches will coach him out of it. Well, the coaches should have coached him out of it at Alabama. The coaches should have coached him out of it at Texas. If Isaiah Bond can fine tune some of the simplest nuances of the wide receiver position, I'm not saying it's going to be a big production amount from him, but his open field ability is great. The speed is there and is certainly a weapon and a factor. Isaiah Bond, just a little bit of work and some nuance work and giving it some fine tuning certainly, could be something that could help this year. DeAndre Carter here is the kick returner. I mean, you guys know I'm completely indifferent about it. I don't feel this team should be spending a roster spot on a return man only. I don't think DeAndre Carter is a good enough return man. Even if he was that good, you could talk me into it. I don't think DeAndre Carter is, just, that much above what would be a league average kick return guy that I can warrant the roster spot being given to him. And the way this room is looking, something would have to go drastically wrong for DeAndre Carter to play some wide receiver reps. So, Malachi Corley on that practice squad, he hits the ground running, left the attitude in New York, and again, wants to work on some of the nuances in transitioning his game from a really good, productive college wide receiver to a guy who can be good and somewhat productive in the NFL. That's another guy. And now that Browns wide receiver room looks young, good. Gage Lavardane, probably the summer fling for Browns fans. And we got to see it at the receiver position. We got to see it with the ball in his hands, running jet sweeps. We got to see it as a return man. Kit came in, and he came in and created separation on routes, did everything this team asked him to do, and basically won over the coaching staff's heart and certainly won over the fan base's heart. What type of role, or does that even lead to being active in week one against the Bengals? remains to be seen. But, Browns fans are loyal sometimes to a fault. And, they've always had these summer flings in the past, whether it was Watkins a couple of years ago, certainly some other guys. And, Gage Lavardane making the 53 is one thing. Being able to contribute on the 53 would just be honestly the chef's kiss. There's not really much to say with David Njoku. I think the expectations are David should be able to produce like he did in 2023. David was producing at a good rate once Joe Flacco got here. David's production kind of went up even higher and higher and higher. The two South Jersey boys, he and Joe Flacco, are certainly a solid pair. They seem to get along very well as teammates, which is probably evident in the working relationship on the field. Cannot wait to just get and digest more Harold Fannin Jr. It was quiet for him most of the summer, and most of the positives from Harold Fannin were happening within practice, were happening within joint practices. We finally got to see that little glimpse of it, of course, with the running the bang slant, of course, for the touchdown against the Rams. Took a little bit of a shot there going across the goal line, but still got in, got his welcome to the NFL moment, and kind of stuff like that ingratiates yourself, of course, with your teammates. We'll see whether or not Whiteheart is ready to go week one. There are two tight ends between Sal Cannella and Brennan on the practice squad. So it's certainly going to come down to, where we are probably starting Monday as to who that third tight end. They're all kind of be the same guy, big, and, hopefully a guy that you're kind of hoping on, to contribute as a blocker, but you probably have enough confidence to throw it to him, if they do find themselves into some open ground. The offensive line, we'll see where Ethan Posick is at. It would kind of be an interesting story if Luke Whippler were to get the start. Third year now. Luke has missed a ton of time, as we all know. Massive injuries his first 2 years. A lot of people criticized him for coming out of Ohio State early when he did. But the opportunity certainly could be there for Luke Whippler come week one. Ethan Posick, again, another guy we're going to know more about possible availability as early as Monday. But maybe the fine print won't be until Wednesday when the Cleveland Browns have to submit their first injury report of the 2025 season. Joel Wyatt back. Dewan Jones going to get that start at left tackle. Jack Conklin. I love that this team has a center in Cole Strange at only 27 years old, a former first-round pick on their practice squad. I really like the practice squad addition of Logan Brown. If you guys remember, I spoke about him a ton during the draft process. We were big fans of running back Keanu Neal from Kansas. Well, Neal, and one of the reasons Neal kind of looked so good was running behind big old Logan Brown. One of the reasons I liked him just was his overall ability. One of the reasons I told you guys I didn't think he'd be somebody that would be on the Browns draft board was age, but the Browns certainly in a practice squad scenario really, really enjoy the guy. Garrett Dellinger, look, guy played in the SEC and played for LSU. May not have wowed during the draft process, not much overall athletic skill that's going to send everybody into a blaze, but LSU, proven. Browns are deep. 13 deep between the practice squad on the offensive line. This has the potential to be a group that could be good if the starters stay healthy and kind of get that running game going that we're also familiar with during the Kevin Stefanski system. But there are a lot of guys here, and we talk about the possibilities or large turnaround for this Cleveland Browns offensive line heading into 2026. Well, there's a lot of candidates already in place to possibly be, knocking on that door for legit playing time in 2026, if not starting time in 2026 with on the offensive line. The defensive line, we're supposed to do some optimism and some concern here. I mean, if I want to say, maybe I just need to see that the interior guys who all really bring a pretty good pedigree as far as pass rushers can make sure they're getting the job done as far as, stopping a run. It's hard not to have nothing but optimism for this defensive line. Everybody, all 10 of them, inside, outside, have the ability to rush the passer. Miles, again, similar to 2023, has some legit talent around him. It's not just Miles Garrett and the Garrett heirs. This group should be able to be just a menace. And again, 8, 9 days away from the home opener. And if I'm Joe Burrow, I'm not sleeping well right now. Miles Garrett is going to cause any quarterback not to get some sleep. But the fact that there's 9 other guys in that defensive line room that can just come in and get it done and throw quarterbacks to the ground certainly has to have the Bengals, offensive staff, offensive line, Um, of course, offense coordinator, head coach, all not sleeping very well. It's a tough, tough week one opponent for the Bengals to play this Browns defensive line. Linebacker room, and, really weird if you asked us in January to where this room is gonna be now. No JOK, obviously, for the entire season. Jordan Hicks, walking away from the game after 10 years, and certainly understandably so. And then you just get all this giddiness, this excitement, this positivity for Carson Schlesinger. And, what we've gotten to see to this point, I don't think Browns fans are, catching a crush here. I think Browns fans, and rightfully so, are ready to go absolutely gaga in love with Carson Schlesinger. It's certainly the play on the field. It's certainly just listening to the young man talk. It's him, you know, kind of giving you almost this kind of like, ah, shucks type of thing, where here is Jim Schwartz, this long time tenured, established, respected and revered defensive coordinator, gushing about his rookie middle linebacker, signal caller of his defense. It's going to be, he's going to be a thing, Carson Schlesinger. He's going to be a legitimate thing. And I think we all just need to buckle up and, whatever this Cleveland Browns 2025 season turns out to be, at the end of it, one thing we're going to talk about, we're going to continue to talk about highly and positively, will certainly be Carson Schlesinger and the growth of his own game. Where it's at after that, certainly with Devin Bush and Baker and Diabate and, Macarena, of course. And I think I'm just going to call him Macarena. Hey, Macarena. But, the question and certainly the concern, Devin Bush could be looking at a suspension himself at any time here. Jerome Baker, kind of been established in the league for years and kind of was a late signing to the Browns as a free agent. Not a lot of traction, so decided to, kind of pack his bags a little bit, go on home, play for the hometown team. Diabate, we really haven't seen. I guess it's probably about 2.5 to 3 weeks now, and we don't really have an answer as to what exactly is going on with Mahmoud Diabate, whether it's injury. Maybe I speculated it could be maybe more of a health concern. Again, maybe some news on Monday, maybe some news on Wednesday when that first injury report does indeed finally come out. Secondary, just interesting. Former Brown safety Jabril Peppers released today from the New England Patriots, really late in the process, probably for a guy like of that caliber to be let go. I think Browns fans are certainly excited. When you hear a name like Jabril Peppers being available, um, I'm not sure necessarily that that's a fit. Certainly, the Browns safety room is certainly a question at this point. And there's not a doubt about that. But, for Peppers, my first thought is, there's been a couple of times where Peppers has kind of maybe been, you know, not in the best light with the organizations that he's been with, found himself a tad bit of trouble. Is there something we haven't heard yet that led to maybe the, New England Patriots cutting bait with Jabril Peppers and still owing him $4.3 million for this season? It seems here we are again, and we do this every year with the Cleveland Browns defense in regards to the free safety position. And it's a lot of want and hope. Can somebody just want this job? We hope will somebody step up with the opportunity for this job and take it? Hickman, Hazy. I mean, the Browns have been trying to give away the free safety position to anybody who would be willing to run with it for a long time now. And just nobody has just claimed it. You tried paying for it. Two guys, Johnson, of course, Thornhill. Neither of those worked out, came even close to working out. Somebody, anybody, you want to, you're a free safety worth of salt. Cleveland Browns could use you. Who knows? Donovan McMillan, somebody step up, claim it next to Grant Delpit. I mean, I do have some thoughts and wonder that, are they going to try maybe Grant Delpit in a little bit more of a higher safety look? Just because, Jenkins can maybe play closer to the line of scrimmage and he's the safety they kind of bring in when they go with a three safety look. And, look, it's not the best part of Grant Delpit's game, but maybe they can view that, that part of Grant Delpit is maybe better than some other guys who are here and trying to play, in a cover two or dead center and a deep cover three. Maybe they use Delpit in that respect. Does that have to? Again, there's always just wanting hope with that Browns safety room outside of Grant Delpit. Denzel finished the week of practice with the shoulder that had been suffered the week before. No reason to believe we're not going to get the best version of 21, the continued best version of 21. Greg Newsome, certainly now the starter on the outside. Does that move things around? Does Newsome maybe come inside when needed, if needed? Are the Browns just going to leave him outside because he's just that much better than the rest? The new guy brought in, a couple days ago, Converse, he's got all the athletic traits. Unfortunately, there's not much of a resume, not much of a track record, certainly not much production to this point from him. As far as, can somebody else, take some nickel snaps? Can Cam Mitchell nail it down? Do the Browns even have enough faith to even give him an opportunity to take some reps there? You have Miles Harden here. And, one of the reasons I'll be fair to Miles Harden is he didn't play much at all last year. So, you wonder if, 1 year in the league, getting to watch more than he played, could Harden possibly give you something where he's now a little bit more comfortable, matured a little bit more to the NFL as a whole. Again, when we get to concerns, these are concerns, and, some of them are pretty big. The defensive line, they're not going to get to the quarterback every single play. And, somebody's going to have to play some secondary. Somebody's going to have to cover. And right now, I don't know that we necessarily have the answers for those things. I love, and I apologize for not bringing this up the other day. And, more than okay. I was certainly more than okay with the kicker switch. Hopkins, it just becomes difficult when, a kicker just becomes so erratic that you basically, hoping he, like a golfer who loses this, you're just hoping he finds it. And there's not really a situation usually with kickers where they get so lost along the path with one organization that they usually redeem themselves or refine themselves within the organization they're with. And looking around, I don't see that Dustin Hopkins has really been, there's been this carousel of kickers that have been kind of going around from team to team, working out, hoping to get claims. And, that carousel of kickers has not included Dustin Hopkins. So, for Hopkins and, to miss the kicks that he did certainly last year and certainly some shaken confidence, there is a great point, of, what happened Christmas Eve 2 years ago in Houston when that hamstring went. Is that now altering his approach? Is it altering his strength in his legs? Is it altering, his ability to not have the ball sail left or sail right? But either way, it was time for a change. And, you're not Dr. Phil. You need to bring in somebody, and if they can just, kick 50 and in, you take it and you call it a day. So Schmidt's certainly going to get that opportunity. The Browns do obviously get younger at the position by going with Schmidt. And, I think we all felt the same, in that final kick against the Rams in the preseason finale, that once that went through the uprights, the Dustin Hopkins experience, which was so crazy and fun in 2023 and such an absolute crap fest in 2024, that there was no reason to go with it on anymore. And, all the best to Dustin. He was certainly one of the bigger storylines of the 2023 season. A lot of huge kicks, beat Pittsburgh, beat Baltimore, all that stuff nobody's ever going to forget. And unfortunately, with the kicker position is I don't think you're ever, you know, revered and, cherished enough for your positives as much as you were beaten down and broken down for your negatives. It's not a fun position, man. It's just not. Not a love lost for kickers, because when you're good, everybody thinks you should be. When you're bad, They want you out of town. Just that simple. So, we did some, positives, and we did some optimism and concern here for this Browns roster as we're in a Labor Day weekend. Again, Brownies are off until Monday, 72-hour leave for all the players with the NFL, mandated between the league and, of course, between the Players Association. Let's get through this Labor Day weekend, give our farewell kiss to summer, and then just absolutely just dig our faces into the 2025 NFL season that will carry us through February 8th. Again, doors were open yesterday to everything VIP at theobr.com. Hope you all got in there, took advantage, saw what you liked, and hopefully it led to you all getting a subscription, which will bundle, of course, with Paramount Plus, so you get all the great UFC action, the insider forums, ask the insiders, ask friends who have it. It's a good deal, and even more so, probably discounted through Labor Day. So I'm not sure the exact number, but go ahead and peek in on that, of course. We were all thankful, for the growth and the support here of the OBR streaming network. We were up almost double the subscribers than when I joined here in January. Again, that's not us, it's you. We put out the content. You guys don't come. We can't subscribe to it ourselves, guys. So, big thank you to all of you for your support here as, we're trying to, get up as much video content along with the great written content here as well. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR over on Twitch. Everybody have yourselves a great weekend. Any news, I'll be here to break it all down with you. Otherwise, it's most likely Monday. This has been Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network, and we will talk to y'all after the weekend.